When man began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. Genesis 6, verses 1 to 4. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are diving into a story that blurs the lines between myth, military history, and the unexplained. It's the tale of the Kandahar Giant, a mysterious and controversial figure that some claim was encountered by U.S. Special Forces in the rugged mountains of Afghanistan. This is a story that has been passed down in whispers, shared among soldiers, and debated in the circles of those who explore the unknown. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, the tale of the Kandahar Giant is one that captures the imagination and leaves us questioning the boundaries of what we consider possible. Our story takes place in 2002 during the height of Operation Enduring Freedom in the remote mountains near Kandahar, a region known for its harsh terrain and ancient history. Afghanistan's rugged landscape is not only physically challenging, but also steeped in stories and legends that go back centuries. This is a land where the past seems to bleed into the present, where myths and reality can sometimes intertwine. The Special Forces unit on this mission was seasoned, well-trained, and accustomed to the dangers of combat in this unforgiving environment. Their objective was straightforward: to locate and capture or eliminate Taliban fighters hiding in the mountains. But what they encountered was something far beyond the scope of their mission, something that defied all conventional explanations. The story begins with a routine mission that quickly turned into a mystery. A Special Forces unit consisting of a dozen highly trained soldiers was sent to investigate reports of unusual activity near a remote cave in the mountains. This was supposed to be a standard operation: clear the area, gather intelligence, and if necessary, engage the enemy. But as they approached the cave, something went wrong. The first unit entered the area, and soon after, all communication was lost. This was not typical. Radio silence in these situations could mean many things: technical failure, interference, or worse, an ambush. The command, concerned for their safety, sent in a second unit to find out what had happened. As the second unit made their way to the cave, they came across a disturbing scene. Equipment was scattered across the rocky terrain. Signs of a struggle were evident, and the bodies of the fallen comrades lay lifeless. But there was something else, something that made the blood of even the most battle-hardened soldiers run cold. As they neared the cave entrance, they were ambushed, not by Taliban fighters, but by a creature straight out of a myth. Emerging from the cave was a giant humanoid figure, standing between 12 and 15 feet tall, with fiery red hair and a terrifying presence. The creature had 6 fingers on each hand, and it wielded a massive primitive spear. The soldiers, though trained to face any enemy, were utterly unprepared for this. The giant attacked with incredible speed and ferocity, impaling one soldier with its spear before the rest of the unit could react. In the chaos that followed, the soldiers opened fire with almost everything they had: rifles, machine guns, and grenades. But the creature seemed almost impervious to their weapons. It took sustained fire, specifically targeting its head, to finally bring the giant down. The encounter left the soldiers in shock, not only from the loss of their comrades, but from the sheer impossibility of what they had just faced. They had expected a firefight, but not against a creature that belonged in the pages of a fantasy novel rather than a battlefield in the 21st century. Once the creature was down, the soldiers were left to deal with the aftermath. The giant's body, massive and otherworldly, lay sprawled on the ground. Its size, its features, everything about it defied explanation. The soldiers quickly radioed for support, and a helicopter was dispatched to extract the body. But this was not a routine extraction. The giant's body was reportedly airlifted to a secure location, and from that point the story takes on an even darker tone. According to some accounts, the incident was immediately classified, and the soldiers involved were sworn to secrecy. The body of the giant was allegedly taken to a top secret facility for study, and any records of the encounter were buried deep within the confines of military bureaucracy. What happened to the giant's body after that is a matter of speculation. Some say it was dissected and studied by government scientists, while others believe it was destroyed to prevent any information from leaking to the public. The soldiers involved were debriefed and told never to speak of what they had seen, and so the story of the Kandahar Giant faded into the realm of myth, known only to those who were there and to those who dared to ask questions that the official narrative refused to answer. The story has never been officially confirmed. In fact, it's been met with significant skepticism, dismissed as a myth or fabrication by many. The military, of course, has never publicly acknowledged the existence of the Kandahar Giant or any such encounter. Skeptics argue that this story is nothing more than a wartime legend, a tale spun by soldiers under immense stress and strain, perhaps exaggerated with each retelling. Others suggest it was a case of mistaken identity, where the soldiers encountered a particularly large and fierce enemy combatant, and over time the story grew into something more fantastical. Yet there are those who believe the story is true, or at least rooted in truth. They point to the consistency of the details across different accounts and the history of similar stories in ancient texts and folklore. If the Kandahar Giant did exist, it would challenge our understanding of history and the boundaries of human knowledge. The idea of giants is not new. Cultures around the world, from the Bible's Nephilim to the Greek Titans, have stories of giant beings who once walked the earth. These giants were often portrayed as powerful and dangerous, sometimes even as demigods, or the offspring of gods and humans. In the Bible, the Nephilim are described as the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men, and they were said to be mighty men of old, men of renown. In ancient Greek mythology, the Titans were colossal beings who preceded the Olympian gods. They were powerful and often antagonistic, representing the primal forces of nature that had to be overcome by the new order of gods. Similar stories can be found in Norse mythology, Native American legends, and even in the folklore of the Middle East, where giants were often depicted as ancient rulers or builders of massive structures. The Kandahar Giant, if real, would seem to fit within this ancient narrative, suggesting that these beings could have survived into the modern era, hidden away in the remote corners of our world. The idea that such creatures could exist in the present day is both thrilling and terrifying, opening up possibilities that challenge our understanding, history, and evolution. The soldiers who allegedly survived the encounter have remained anonymous, with only second-hand accounts and supposed leaks to rely on. This has led to a mix of fascination and doubt. Could they have witnessed something extraordinary? Or was this just a war story that grew out of control? It's important to remember the context in which the story emerged. War is a chaotic and traumatic experience, where the line between reality and hallucination can sometimes blur. Soldiers in combat often experience extreme stress, fear, and fatigue, all of which can affect their perceptions. Yet those who believe in the Kandahar Giant argue that these were experienced, battle-hardened soldiers, not the kind to be easily shaken or fooled. The fact that this story has persisted over 2 decades, with new details occasionally surfacing, suggests that there is something about it that resonates with those who hear it. Whether it's the allure of the unknown, the fear of the imaginable, or simply the power of a good story, the Kandahar Giant has become a modern myth, a tale that continues to captivate and provoke debate. So what could the Kandahar Giant actually be, if it did exist? There are several theories, each more intriguing than the last. Some suggest it was a remnant of a forgotten species, a creature that somehow survived the extinction events that wiped out other megafauna. This theory posits that isolated populations of such beings could still exist in remote, uncharted areas of the world. Others believe the giant was a Nephilim, a descendant of the ancient giants mentioned in the Bible. This theory ties into various religious and mythological beliefs, suggesting that these beings were real and that their existence has been deliberately hidden from the public. A more speculative theory is that the Kandahar Giant was an extraterrestrial being, perhaps a stranded or lost member of an alien species. This idea is widely accepted but has been entertained by those who study UFOs and alien encounters. Then there are those who say the whole story is a fabrication, a wartime legend that grew out of fear and the need to make sense of the unknown. In this view, the Kandahar Giant is no different from the countless other legends that have emerged from the fog of war, stories that serve to explain the inexplicable and give meaning to the chaos of combat. Ultimately, whether the Kandahar Giant was real or not, the story itself serves as a powerful example of how myths are born and persist. In a world where we often seek explanations and certainty, stories like these remind us of the mysteries that still linger on the edges of our understanding. Myths have always been a way for humans to explore the unknown, to give shape to the fears and wonders that lie beyond our grasp. The story of the Kandahar Giant taps into deep-seated archetypes, the fear of the other, the hero's battle against a monstrous foe, the unknown lurking in the dark. These are themes that resonate across cultures and time, and they are part of what makes the story so compelling. So what do you think? Is the Kandahar Giant a tale of truth buried beneath layers of secrecy? Or is it just another myth that will continue to haunt the shadows of history? Whether real or imagined, the story of the Kandahar Giant challenges us to confront the unknown, to question what we believe is possible, and to wonder at the mysteries that still might be hidden in the far corners of our world. When man began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came to the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown.